Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. This is Ibrahim Alwawi. I am IT instructor in North East Scotland College, Aberdeen, UK. Today I would like to talk about myself, my qualification, and my experience in the field of IT. And I would like also to talk about a very interesting topic. First of all, I would like to say that I have, just by the will and the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I just have submitted my PhD thesis recently, and I'm awaiting for the Viva. And I have done my MSc in Information Technology in University of Aberdeen, Dundee in UK. And at this moment I am in Aberdeen, where I work in Aberdeen College as IT instructor, and I have done my PhD in RGU, Robert Gordon University. My first degree was in Educational Technology in Al-Aqsa University, Palestine. And I have done also in UK BGCERD research methods in RGU as well. I have done different training and courses that related to the field of IT and computing science, and also teaching. I did teaching in colleges, I did Assessor Award, and I did health and safety regulations in different ways, freedom of information, teaching methods, child protection, and educational essential skills, and how to deal with disability and equality, and other things like diversity and data protection and things like that. Also, I have done a very interesting course in Cambridge University about IC thinking in communication, which is how you do very creative thinking and integrative complicity. Now, I would like to talk about my experience very briefly. At this moment, as I mentioned, I am IT instructor in Aberdeen College, and I used to be there as well before I did my PhD. And also I am a minister of religion, helping in the Islamic center in the local community. And I did teaching assistant in RGU Aberdeen, UK before in 2012 and 2013. And I worked before in 2000 until 2003 as principal of Learning Resource Center, where I dealt with lots of technology and computing design and computing material, and I design lots of material and train new teachers. Now I would like to start my topic today, and it's a very interesting topic, and it is about big data. Big data is a very new topic. It has been for some times, and it has lots of interesting things, and I believe it will change the way that the human interact with each other. It is actually a new era, because the topic itself, we live with it and we see it, we experience it, but maybe sometimes we don't notice it. Big data, from the name, it is a huge amount of data comes together in different ways, some of them organized, some of them unorganized, and examples of that: healthcare records, oil and gas sensors data, flights details, CCTV videos, and so on. There are two types of big data. This one is structured data, and the other one is unstructured data. The structured data, it is only 10% of the big data that exists in the world nowadays, and it is actually organized in databases such as student record in universities and healthcare like records in hospitals, and HR records for employments and employees in different organizations, and customer records in the supermarkets and big marketing companies. Unstructured data, which is the second and large type of data, it is 90% of the existing big data in the world. It is unorganized, such as emails, such as Facebook posts and tweets posts as well, videos, images, call centers conversations, mobile phone calls, and website clicks. You can see the big difference between the two types of data. But what is interesting about big data is it does grow very fast and very large, and it is very difficult to visualize, very difficult to analyze, and very difficult to be controlled within the typical softwares like, for example, Excel, SPSS, Access, etc. Now, what is the special thing about big data? Why we should care about big data? In fact, the importance of big data doesn't revolve or involve the amount of the data. It's not really how much data we have, but indeed it is what we do with this data. Whether this data is useful or not. Can we extract useful information from it or not? Can we make critical and useful decisions based on our analysis? So basically it's all about insight. It's all about practicality and applications, and how can this data be useful for us. So if we look at the big data in today's world, we will find that there is certain way to get this insight, this understanding, this meaningful information from the data. First, we acquire the data, then we organize the data, then we analyze it, and there are many techniques to analyze big data. For example, machine learning. This is a very interesting and recent also techniques, and I used it in my PhD. And there are other techniques, statistical methods as well. For example, in machine learning techniques, you have the training data and you have the testing data. The training data, the training that exists and labeled and organized and classified already. And the new data, the testing data, when it comes, we scan the database and then we search for the nearest neighbor, which is the nearest really data that is similar to the first one. Like in my PhD case about images and medical images, and how to match these images together based on the redness and the color feature in the image. There are many applications for big data. For example, you get the reminder systems, recommender system, and this recommender system also interesting if you go, for example, to Amazon. And as you can see in this example, if you want to buy, for example, sugar, you will find Amazon recommending certain items for you, like tea, coffee, other things, milk. And the reason of that, because there are lots of data suggested that those one who buy sugar always buy milk and they buy tea and coffee. So this information, when it is analyzed and has become meaningful, then it recommends to you certain items that related to the item that you bought. And this is also for marketing reason and for analysis reason. Now, there is another application called the sentiment analysis, which is a very interesting one, especially for these big, large companies and governments, and for example, the airlines, when they want to know like people opinions about something or feedback on certain products or services. So what they do, they get huge data from the surveys or questionnaire or Facebook or Twitter, and then what they do, actually they got all these comments, but they already have a list of positive words, like 1,000 words saying yes, we agree, and give positive feedback, and then another 1,000 word they give negative feedback. For example, positive words like good, excellent, we like it, fabulous, brilliant, oh lovely, nice, and so on and so forth. And then negative one is like bad, I don't like it, the worst that I've seen, and things like that. So basically they put these two groups in the database, and then when people give their feedback, and then they register this feedback, and then they analyze it by matching the people words with the existing words, and then they can, after that match, they count, and then they get the percentages, and then they will know whether people like or dislike their products or service, and then they will make the right decision. So it can be very important and very critical. Another big data application, predictive analysis, to predict, like for example, population analysis and statistics. So predict something for the future based on the past and previous data. So they analyze how many people born, the age of people, and during certain times, like for example during maybe 70 years or 100 years. Then they can predict how many people expected to be born next year. Another example is the clustering, or they call it classification or grouping. Clustering analysis is really interesting because you have already data that already grouped and classified already, and then you get new data and is scattered everywhere, not classified and not labeled. So you do kind of match between the new one and the previous one. Let's call it the testing one, which is the new one, and the training one, which is the old one and the existing one, and then they match between them based on certain features and qualities or attributes or characteristics that they have, and then they classify the new one based on the classification of the old one. So the new one actually will take same labels and same description. In my case, for example, of the PhD, I have done the images, and this medical images, it was about the eye and the red eye or conjunctivitis, which is the infection in the eye and the degrees of the infection. So we have thousands of images in the database. So this is how the system works, and then there are new images coming from new patients, and then we classified the new images based on the previous images, basically based on the nearest neighbor. The nearest neighbor is actually the image that has similar descriptions or features. In this case, the color equalities or intensity and the color feature, when it is matched, then the new image will take the label of the old image or the existing image, a training image that stored already and labeled already in the database. It will take its label and description. Now there's another method called AN, which stands for Artificial Neural Networks. And it is very also interesting because without the training data, they can actually classify the data without getting guide from the existing data, actually, because they have all what they have is new data. But because they have only one thing, which is the guidance that they have is the feature or the characteristic that they are classifying based. And then in this case, for example, based on the redness intensity, they can classify the new images, and then they can put them in groups. And you can see here the result. For example, we have 3 groups, and one is normal, that doesn't have infection, and one is moderate, which has some infection, and there is the third one, which is the severe, which has lots of infection. This is the end of my presentation. There is further readings here, some papers and articles for more details. And thank you very much for listening. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And I will be very delighted to work as IT instructor in the Islamic Online University. Thank you.